thank you everyone for coming out to the closed beta community Q&A, I guess you could say. A little bit of an announcement thing as well, just getting you guys ready and prepared for the closed beta start on April 10th. But yeah, for everyone who's here and attending, don't worry if you have to leave early. This is being recorded. This will be posted to the YouTube. The format for today will be some announcements. Then we'll go to the Q&A, and then we'll have some briefing before the technical test. Once again, technical test after this meeting. That is going to be on the 360 main build. But yeah, so let's get straight into the meat and potatoes. The closed beta officially happens on April 10th, okay? Now, there's some caveats to this, and we'll just go through this in case you missed some announcements. But April 10th, that's the Friday of April 10th, that's when everyone, deluxe and up, will have access to the game. We are going to be running just to make sure things are controlled and kind of, it's gameplay quality and match quality is very important to us as a studio. And we want to make sure that we ease people into it. That's how we've had so much success retaining the quality of gameplay as we went from internal to founders to supporters. It's very controlled growth. So it's definitely a lot different than I think traditional game studios where we're like looking for massive, like day one, so many players off rip and just flood the game like that. As you can tell throughout the entirety of the development at Astartes, we have been very deliberate adding in new sections of players just because we know that community and how you guys play match to match and how you interact with each other and the systems itself. It's very important that we have a veteran player base or an experienced player base that is able to kind of guide and help new players into the experience. And we want to just be very controlled as we go about doing that. So the closed beta will still maintain some form of control. That being said, there is still more playtest sessions than ever before in alpha or with founders, etc. So April 10th will be the first day of the open beta, and that will run till the 12th. And basically, that's going to be the format until we expand it to Thursdays. It'll be Friday to Sunday night, servers up all the time. Once we're pretty happy with that, it could be as early as, May. We'll expand to Thursday. And then, after that, it'd be Wednesday to Sunday. And then after that, the next step from there would probably be 24/7 servers. So still just maintaining, very important controlled match quality just because we know how much this game really relies on player interaction with the systems and with other people. And despite how simple the game may look on paper, there's a lot of nuance to the systems and to the gameplay that we know it's important that we have a kind of a coaxing period of new players into the project. That being said, the reason why this is necessary now and how we will handle this in the future is just we don't have all the gameplay systems and restraints and controls to handle that autonomously yet. And what I mean by that is like mandatory or, maybe not mandatory, but any kind of in-game learning materials like tutorials or certifications, or any kind of pipeline, new player pipeline in-game currently, right? Because, we're focused on building the actual game experience right now in alpha, beta, and early access. But later on, right, this will be solved internally with the tools that we'll have for you guys organically to the game. So just keep that in mind. That's just kind of why we have to roll it this way. We think it's the best way for you guys to have the most enjoyable experience, is to make sure that we constantly are monitoring match quality and gameplay quality and not just dumping people into the experience, because I know that is very detrimental to the experiences when you have people who there's just too many new people to maintain the standard of quality of play that a lot of you here, founders and supporters, have come to love and enjoy. That being said, right, one kind of disclaimer with that, of course, is that means that it's always going to be rough when there's new players, and that's just the nature of the experience until we build more of those restraints, more of those systems, more of those guardrails in. I do ask that everyone here is patient with the new players. Everyone here in this experience has been new to this game at some point in time. We ask that you help others when you can. We've already seen a lot of people in the community, whether it's individuals or groups and units, taking it upon themselves to kind of help new players in the game. Just keep in mind that it might get frustrating, but the best thing that you guys can do is just help new people, be welcoming to the community. And that being said, in beta, we are introducing a whole bunch of new systems. There should be a whole new game mode as well, which means that everyone is going to kind of be starting again at that base level of experience. So just go in there humbly, absorb, work together. That is the core of the Bellum experience. No one has been playing this game long enough or has just had enough hours in this game yet to definitively and objectively dictate how certain things should be done or should be played. We are still very young as far as a community and as far as game experience across the board. Even the people who have shown up like multiple times, there's just haven't been enough time for people to like be, I know exactly how to do everything here. So to go in with an open mind, just understand that come April 10th, closed beta, with all the new systems, you know, drones, IEDs, the new game mode, the new map, dynamic AO stuff, it's going to shake up the game significantly, which I know a lot of you guys are excited for as well. You know, a lot of you guys are ready for that next step, ready for that next shake up experience, all these different tools that will change exactly how you can utilize the terrain and the tools at your disposal to impact the battlefield. And there's also going to be a slew of medical updates and changes as well. We're constantly looking at things as well as far as, you know, damage and stamina and everything. So the game is constantly in a mode of flux. The best thing I can say is just figure things out together, work together, and yeah, that's the best I can say. So have to get that disclaimer out there. Every time there's a new wave of people, it's always going to be rough until we get more guardrails in, and we're working fast on those things, but those things do take time, and we're trying to balance those guardrails and new player onboarding hand in hand with the actual game itself. So what is actually going to be in the closed beta? We talked about already when that's happening. And just a reminder, if you purchased the deluxe edition before, I think it was March 6th, you're getting in this weekend. And that's mainly because, you know, that's our kind of make good on the fact that despite us having to delay beta a couple weeks, if you purchased it early, you're just going to join the end of alpha. So you're going to join the end of alpha at the this weekend if you've purchased early before March 6th. Any people after that, you're just going to have to wait till April 10th. That's just how we're kind of bridging that gap and saying, you know, we had hoped to get beta out a little bit earlier. We were unable to do so. So you guys are going to be joining the end of alpha. That being said, also keep in mind, you're joining the end of alpha. This is the alpha and the beta sessions moving forward for the early access. So it's still very early on in development. We are still very barely touching the surface of what we want to accomplish as a studio. There's a lot of content and ideas and mechanics and features and art that we want to add to the experience of Bellum, but, you know, just understand that everything's in mode of flux as we go through alpha and beta. And then early access, I'd say, would be where you guys should start looking at, like, okay, this is like the majority of the experiences here, and things are starting to really get settled in. But during alpha and beta, we are still fine-tuning many features, many systems. So moving on to what is new, right? We touched on this a little bit already. We've announced some of this publicly. It is in the announcement channel. And so what is publicly confirmed to be in come April 10th is going to be the new Exploitation game mode. We can talk about that very briefly. The Exploitation game mode is a very simple change to attrition. A lot of you guys know that attrition is our very simple, you know, quote unquote TDM, King of the Hill style game mode where two teams are just fighting in the center. And the goal is very simply to kill each other. And even with that simple goal of just killing each other, you guys have experienced, the supporters and founders over the past months, you guys have experienced that even with those simple rule set and win conditions, because of the nuance and the detail in the features and mechanics of Bellum and how the teams are structured and the limited life system, there's so much depth in just finding, fixing, and finishing the enemy, right? There's so many different metas you can do, so many different tactics and strategies. So Exploitation, because it's a whole new game mode, will be introducing a whole new style of play as well. Exploitation is also very simple on paper. It is going to be the first mode that introduces intel, and the goal is essentially to exploit the intelligence found off of insurgent players specifically for this first iteration of Exploitation, to find and destroy the caches that they have set in the AO. So how that works is very similarly to how we did it in Dynamic Direction. Essentially, the game mechanic is that the caches, the insurgents start early on the map, as usual. They'll go out and they have a limited amount of caches to place down that are permanent on the map until destroyed. When these caches are placed on the map, they are passively generating influence. So what this means is that insurgent forces will be once again, their bodies themselves in the AO generate influence. But now, in addition to that, they have a multiplier or an additional increase to their influence, which is those caches. That forces the conventional forces. They have to look and destroy the caches. You cannot sit on these hills that we've seen kind of get stagnated in attrition a little bit. It is going to force the conventional forces to patrol out, search, and destroy these caches. And that opens up a whole bunch of different gameplay possibilities. Conventional forces are going to want to find, kill, and exploit the intelligence found off of dead enemies to find where the cache is. The insurgent forces are now going to be able to lay proper ambushes because the conventional forces have to move into them. That being said, attrition is still, this is why we started with attrition, is still a sub-win condition, right? Because everyone still has limited lives. Your life is still valuable. The way you go about playing exploitation is even more now complex because you have to achieve this goal while retaining manpower. So that is going to be a big mix-up, right? Because it forces movement in the game, and it's going to introduce some pretty gnarly ambushes with the combination of IEDs in the game as well. So some really cool stuff. There will be balance issues just because it will be the first iteration. Once again, we're in beta. That's the reason you are here, is that you can experience these things in mass at scale versus like our small internal dev QA team. And we can start going through and balancing things as we need to. But exploitation is a very big change in the game mode, a very big change in the thinking behind how the teams operate and what their goals are on the map, while still retaining the importance of the fact that, your life is important. And that's important because it means that, as insurgents, you don't want to just throw yourselves at the enemy still, right? You still have to think tactically about every single engagement, about every single maneuver. And that's the glue. Once again, that limited life system is the glue that ties the whole platoon in together. That's how we see this unparalleled degree of teamwork and coordination within the experiences, because everyone kind of understands out there that, hey, my life is important. I want to save those around me. I want people to be around me to save me. And we have a goal to achieve. So exploitation should be fun, should be cool. As I mentioned as well, IEDs, claymores should be in the project as well. So not only are insurgents getting the means to set IED traps around the map as well, it won't be plentiful, right? It'll just be a couple, but that threat will be present. It will allow them to set proper kill zones, and once again with exploitation, bait conventional forces into them. Conventional forces are getting claymores and their own anti-personnel explosives as well. I believe the Russians are getting the Mon 50, which is essentially a Russian claymore. And this is, an option for them to use defensively, right? So when they're moving out, maybe they want to secure a flank even more so, whether it's on the support by fire or, maybe they're feinting a retreat and they want to lay claymores to counter the enemy advance. Then once again, the creative freedom of you guys on the AO, it's vast, and we've seen you guys demonstrate multiple times. You guys do a whole bunch of cool things: flank here, platoon attacks, a lot of cool different maneuvers at the platoon scale are witnessed from the sky, and we're just giving you more tools to get more creative with how your team can utilize these things in a tactical sense. So in addition to claymores, we're going to have the first iteration of the drones, right? Once again, that will also be the first push of the drones. Will probably require additional tweaking and balancing as well over time. Very specifically, to speak on drones, every team gets a drone operator. We have to see how many drones we give and how lethal the drones actually end up being in macro at scale with other players. But the way that it works is conventional forces, the Rangers are getting the Black Hornet. So the Black Hornet goes to the Rista, the 1-8 drone operator role for the Ranger Regiment. And he is going to get a Black Hornet. A Black Hornet is a really small, really quiet reconnaissance drone. It is very hard to see. It is very hard to hear. It is there, and it's small enough that he can equip it and deploy it in the field, right? He can carry this thing with him, this small little drone. So they could use it to scout really rapidly the immediate area around them. So let's say the platoon's moving out and they want to scout the next ridge ahead. Within like a couple minutes, that drone operator can deploy the drone, fly it out, look, and come back and get retrieved. Once again, drones are going to be a limited resource. You lose it, you drop it, you you get it blown up or shot down, then you have to go and resupply to get another drone. It is not armed. There will be more drone options in the future, as we've talked about customization a lot in the past. But eventually you'll have the option to pick which drone you want to bring out, and there'll be pros and cons. But that's the first drone for the Rangers. The Russians are getting an FPV drone. Okay. And once again, this is limited. There's only going to be, a few of these available at any point in time. So it's very much so a surgical weapon, and you have to use it at the right time in coordination with the platoon or with another element in order to maximize its effect, right? It's not really going to do much if you just fly this thing into a group of guys and there's no follow-up or supporting maneuver or supporting action. You are going to want to use this FPV in coordination with another effort. This FPV is going to be armed with an RPG warhead, and so that allows the operator to fly it, obviously, direct into something. Now, here's the con of that drone. That drone is parked at the main operating base or the initial spawn point. It is too large to be packed into a backpack and to be, I'm going to walk out here with this massive FPV drone and drop this thing and fly this thing in the field as the platoon's out on patrol. This thing will be parked at the main base. Now, it could be flown out and then parked somewhere on the map, and then you can, fly it from there. That is entirely an option, and keep it down in like kind of an ambush mode per se. But that is the con to the FPV, is that if you're out with the platoon, which I think it's going to be interesting to see once again how you guys utilize the thing, because once again, there's a lot of nuance. Do you sit as the drone operator at the main base and just wait for the call? Do you move out with the platoon so that you have eyes on the exact line of sight of what the platoon wants you to engage and can then walk it on? But in either case, you're going to have to, as a drone operator for Russia specifically and the insurgents, be able to fly it from the main base to where the target is located or where the team wants you to hit the drone within a timely fashion, orient onto the target while in flight, avoid fire, and then land it into the enemy. It is going to be a hard thing to do, most definitely. The FPV, once again, it's like a heat-seeking missile, so it's going to be difficult to fly. And once again, we're going to have the proper audio and visual that you should kind of expect from a drone like this. So for most of these drones, you're not going to have audio, right? Because you don't have an audio feed when you fly a significant amount of these things. Your visual is going to cut out as you get interference, right? It's going to be challenging to utilize these very powerful, new generation tools. And that's kind of the pros and cons of the FPV, is that it's incredibly lethal when you land it on the target. But of course, you are going to have to get it from the main base, kind of orient yourself to the target, and then impact without missing, without crashing, without getting shot down. And of course, once again, all this stuff requires testing and further iteration. We are 100% not expecting to get it right day one. Okay. It is definitely going to require further iteration, but that's what you can expect for the Russian drone. For the insurgent drone operator is going to be getting a quadcopter. Okay. Now, this quadcopter, once again, quadcopters are pretty large, especially the bomber kind, which it is. And so this one, once again, cannot be carried with the operator out in the field. It has to be launched from the main base. Of course, you can fly it from the main base into the AO and park it. Definitely a thing you can do. But this drone is just it's primarily an observation platform, but it also does retain the ability to drop ordnance in the form of grenades currently. I think we're tooling around with some other cool tricks of things you can attach to the drone from the ground. But essentially, a player will be able to go up to the drone, whether it's a drone operator or another player, and attach a grenade to the drone. And then that drone, of course, can be flown up and can release that grenade at a time and place of their choosing. Now, once again, a whole bunch of stuff is in effect, which makes this a difficult process to do. There's wind, there's audio and visual interference. You have to identify where the target is. These things are incredibly limited, right? So when I say incredibly limited, just to give people kind of an idea, we're thinking at the start that you're only going to get 2 to 3 drones per team for the entire match, just because of how powerful they are. Like that, the simple fact that you can have this thing up in the air and spot things, that capability in and of itself makes drones, obviously incredibly powerful on the battlefield. So once again, we'll be testing things and feeling things out, but it's not going to be like some other experiences where you're just getting FPV'd relentlessly over and over and over and over and over again. Once again, Bellum at this point in time is a counterinsurgency style battleground, battle space. It is not a conventional, large scale combined operations, two nations just lobbing ordnance and resources against each other. So that's kind of the smaller scale that we're more working on, the more surgical scale. But all three factions are getting unique styles of drones, each with their own pros and cons. Yeah, that's kind of the deal. And this is once again just the first iteration. There will be additional things that come in the future as well. Yeah, drones will be super cool. That capability in and of itself, I think, will increase the coordination between the elements. Okay, that is the drones. True dynamic AO generation. The first tested iteration should be in by the 10th. Now, what this is essentially, right now, a lot of you guys, the supporters plus, have been testing and been playing. Like, you guys are understanding that there's a lot of pre-made AOs with pre-made starts and spawns and stuff like that. This new dynamic system completely randomizes where the AO is, where the spawns are, which teams there are, what time there is, what time it is. So it won't be able to like, oh, I know this AO, I know where they start, I know how fast we can get here, and I know blah, 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 blah. The goal, just from our side, from a kind of philosophical standpoint, is that you should never really have any of that information. You should have some information, as far as, of course, where the AO is, right? That should be a known for gameplay purposes. But you shouldn't ever really have concrete information on where, when, or what the enemy is doing until you work for that information and find it out. So that's a big effort for further obfuscation of the match state. The first AO of our second playable map, Kambori, will be played that weekend on the 10th. It will be, once again, the 10th is the first iteration for a lot of this stuff. You guys are the testers for this. Of course, we do some internal testing, but first large scale is going to be you guys. And that is a different style of map. We'll be showcasing and teasing more images of this map in the future as we proceed closer to the closed beta, excuse me. But it is much flatter than Highlands. Highlands, we have a lot of these rolling hills. There's a lot of elevation changes. There's this river that creates kind of this valley in some areas. Kambori is a lot flatter. It's a lot more arid as well, kind of more tan and yellowish tones, so kind of giving you a different color palette as well. And it should, just alone, the fact that it is more flat is going to offer significantly different gameplay styles and feels, just because certain maneuvers, you're going to be able to make certain maneuvers more easily than you can on Highlands in some areas, because you're obscured by, whether it's little brush lines or little berms, decent amount of buildings as well. Like, sight lines just get cut much more easily on Kambori. So that should offer some really, really cool firefights. I think a lot of you guys have been asking for like some street to street fighting. And now, while Kambori isn't really this urban area, I think we are going to see a lot more of these kind of condensed, really crunchy engagements over short distances, rather than some of these medium or longer range engagements that we're seeing currently. That being said, of course, you can still get pretty close to people using the tree lines in Highlands. But yeah, I think Kambori will be pretty interesting, a different, unique feel and look. That should be a lot of fun as well. All right, we covered drones, we covered the AO, we covered the playable map, we covered the game mode. Let's see, what else do we have? There's a lot of small bug fixes that are not small. I shouldn't say small. There's a lot of big bug fixes we've gone into that really kind of smoothen out a lot of the animations or just some of the jank between the crew serve stuff. And once again, this stuff is always in active development. These things are always being improved. But yeah, a lot of improvements and bug fixes. Sound is kind of wrapping up this last pass, just for you guys to be in the loop. There should also be a pretty substantial UI overhaul of everything, including the deployment screen is getting another pass. There will be a faction select screen. The server browser is going to get a refresh. The settings page is going to get a refresh. So just a general modernization and undev UIing, if that's a phrase to use, of all of the UI currently in the game, as we continue with this next stage of development. So Super excited for that because I think it does just give the game a more polished feel rather than what we've currently been using, which is like the devs slapping together whatever could be used in alpha that took the least amount of time. Okay, also coming on the 10th of April is going to be the team quality of life kind of rewrite. This changes a lot of things in the system that gives us a lot more power. Some things we can talk about are the vote kicking and the chain of command system. These two are big. So the vote kicking essentially allows the team to, of course, the team has to kind of be unanimous. And once again, we're going to be tweaking these things, making sure the vote feels good and controlled and right. You're going to be able to remove certain problem players from certain positions if, the entire team or the vast majority of the team agrees that like this person is causing an issue. Of course, once again, this is the first guardrail of many guardrails that will go in. That will ensure that match to match you guys have a consistent quality, and as well as preventing exploitation of these tools. That's also an ongoing effort to make sure that these tools aren't being used maliciously. There's a huge system that we are working on behind the scenes that's taking a decent amount of time that will help to once again curb the playable experience and give you guys a little more control over working together, just because the experience is very heavily reliant on that. And we do understand that. I'll give you guys an example for one, right now, currently just at its current stage in development in Bellum, there are no guardrails for stopping like a brand new day one, hour zero player from hopping in and grabbing platoon leader. Right now, this is not intended long term. Eventually we will have the guardrails in. But until then, we're doing what we can to add a few community tools that are controlled and hopefully, not exploitable to the best of our ability to help the community kind of manage that themselves. Of course, community servers will handle this, and we'll get to that later. But that's the no confidence vote kicking, is just to kind of bridge that gap for now. Of course, we'll continually be improving the system and adding more guardrails. The next thing is going to be the chain of command system. Now, this is just a simple system where, let's say you're 1-1 and you have your squad leader and your whole squad's in there. And let's just say your squad leader disconnects. What will happen is the abilities and the comms of the squad leader will pass down to the alpha team leader, right? And if the alpha team leader disconnects, they'll go to the Bravo team leader. And it doesn't, just relate to disconnects. This happens even if, like, let's say we're playing and we're 30 minutes into the match, 40 minutes into the match, and my squad leader has run out of lives. Well, the chain of command system will pass those comms and that squad spawn ability down to the alpha, right? And that will help you guys maintain squad cohesion while kind of taking losses or throughout the duration of a match where people might have technical issues or drop out X, Y, or Z. So just once again, focusing on making the experience more consistent. And this is, once again, just the first few systems that we're putting in place that will continue to be guardrails to make sure that you have a consistent experience within the project. Okay, that's just two of the systems. There's a lot more that we'll probably announce next month regarding cool things we can do with the new system. But just know that the unit system is getting a refresh, which gives us more capabilities on the dev end for you guys to manage your experience, as well as gives us cool game design capabilities. So we'll touch on that in the future. Okay. Just some final things. Player counts are going to remain at 80 players for we could see a couple months at least. We are very happy with the server performance at 80 players right now. The servers pretty much do not suffer any networking or server hiccups at all, really, at this point. So really got to hand it to the network team for getting us to this benchmark pretty handedly. So awesome news there. Of course, always looking to improve things, and just because we are doing so well at this current breakpoint means that further pushes should not give us too much of a headache either. And then community servers. We know that we've talked that community servers will be coming some point in beta. The way that this rollout is going to happen is, once again, it is going to be controlled, just because we care very much so about the experience, and we want to be active participants in how the experience is played and how it's being managed. And community servers, while being a big part of that, We want to make sure that that is being handled correctly, at least at the start, while we're still building out all the systems and tools for you guys. So we'll touch on this briefly, because I know for the vast majority of people, unless they're community hosts or community leads, you guys don't really care about this. But essentially, once again, a reminder that everything's being hosted in-house. We have our own distribution, our own network, our own hardware. This means that you won't go to another third-party source, and you cannot host Bellum servers on your own hardware. This is for multiple reasons, including the fact that there's going to be a progression system later on in Bellum's life. And so we can't have like exploit servers, max XP, like max rank, whatever, max unlock servers floating around. So all the hardware and everything will be via our infrastructure. You'll be accessing and managing these servers via our launcher. So it's baked right in. You don't have to go to any website. You have to download anything new. It is literally going to be baked into the launcher. So super easy peasy, one click solution for us, where you guys will be able to essentially host admin from there. You'll be able to, configure the server from there. Let me see if I can share some of this without leaking certain things. Okay, well, we'll do a showcase of the server system, but that also got a major overhaul to where everything you could ever want to manage a server, because it's the tools that we're using as devs right now to manage the servers as well, as far as like how we put people on admin, or how we do the server rotation, or how we do all that stuff. It is custom, bespoke, purpose built for Bellum, so that you as a community leader, community host, or server host, or whatever, have the most frictionless experience hosting the experience. Because I know how much of a pain it is to host other games. You got to look stuff up in the documentation. You got to download and install the server. You got to config these files, and you have to download a third-party server config tool. We get it. We know. I totally understand. So we're building that tool for you guys. Once again, we try to handle as much of the project for you guys as possible, so that it's all in-house and frictionless, because that's the way milsim gaming should be. Okay, so that's going to be coming, and the rollout, right? The important part, the rollout. First, we're going to pick a couple of communities to start, and they're just going to get exclusive access, just so we can communicate directly with these first couple of communities and make sure we have that initial rollout that's smooth. And then once we have everything and they bug tested it, and we've found all the things that need fixing, or the small additions that need to be added, at that point we'll open it up to everyone, right? But just understand that, like, we care a lot about every stage of every feature, of every development, of every mechanic, that we do want to make sure that we talk and we test things properly with certain groups and people before rolling it out to everyone. And so we do appreciate everyone's patience with the community servers stuff. We'll announce, of course, when we're reaching out to certain communities, but it'll be pretty straightforward as far as like, oh yeah, this makes sense that we're doing it like this, that we're doing these communities are getting these things temporarily, exclusively, and testing them for the duration. So just keep that in mind. But we do understand that, like, hey, yeah, we don't want to have any one group kind of monopolize everything. We want to make sure that every team can kind of have their own space. But we do, once again, it is paramount to us that we make sure that we have all the features in the system ironclad before it goes wide. Okay, that pretty much handles everything I want to discuss. At this point, we're going to roll into the QA, and then we'll talk about the tech test, and then we'll play the tech test. So let's go ahead and get to the QA. So at this point, after my message, all right, I'll grab some of these guys that answered it before, but once again, just copy and paste your message again after my message, just because I don't want to like scroll up and scroll down, get lost, whatever the case may be. So we're going to go through here and we're going to start burning through these. Okay. Chef says, rearming at main base, will that come? Also being able to bring a heavy crate with ammo to rearm in the field. Number one, rearming at main base is a thing currently. You just redeploy at main base. Redeploying at main base currently does not eat a life. In the future, there'll be an object that you will interact with so that you can get a fresh kit. So that's technically already in. As far as bringing a heavy crate with extra stuff to the field, you'll hear more about that in a little bit. There is something like that planned. We realize in some of our messaging that logistics is probably, I think a lot of people already have a lot of preconceptions about logistics because of how previous games have done them. The way that our like additional ammunition and stuff and system works is a little bit different. I think the more accurate way to kind of describe that would be sustainment. The way that we want players to think about ammunition expenditure and equipment expenditure and even kind of, I guess, replenishment in the field is more so along the lines of sustainment rather than the traditional or current generation of just you have unlimited stuff so long as you drive it from main. That's not exactly how our system is going to feel. So I think when people hear logistics, they kind of like, oh, it's going to be like this. I think more sustainment. That's kind of how I think about it. Maple asks, how will you be collecting names for the training map monument? That all the reward stuff like that, any name stuff, that's all going to be a Google form that goes out and you'll hit your inboxes. All the, I should say most of the rewards should be all completed and in and you know, fulfilled by early access. That's kind of the timeline for that because it's working in parallel with the development of the project. Of course, we're not going to like freeze development so we can just crank out the memorial map first because, you know, just from I don't think the players would be happy if we did that because you guys want to play the actual game first. And the devs, of course, we want to make sure that we're working on kind of the highest impact things as we continue development. So that's kind of the timeline for that. But all those additional name things will be, or any submission type stuff, all that stuff will be Google Forms sent to your inboxes. I will say there's also a small interesting thing that might happen. I just want to kind of disclaim that we might do it through the launcher as well, just because we have that capability. It might be easier, but you guys will get notified of when that'll be collected. It'll either be a form of some kind through email, or it could be through the launcher. I've got to talk to Barton about that, but that'd be really slick if we could just do it that way. Useless asks, would you be able to share details on the updated medical system you mentioned earlier? Yeah, so the medical system is still not finished. It is still missing a lot of features that we 100% plan to have in. And so some of the things that we 100% plan to have in that just aren't in yet that I'll speak about now is going to be the addition of negative effects due to injuries or status of limbs or just body parts. Right now, for example, when you get shot in the arm, there's no punishment. Yeah, there's bleeds and yeah, there's trauma and blood that like health points that are lost. But there should be punishment to the limbs, right? Like getting shot. You've already seen some of this already with certain very specific body parts like crit zones with the head or the A box, right? Crit zones, or even the pelvic girdle, right? Getting shot in the pelvic girdle. You guys notice that a lot actually. Or even in the legs, right? There's the chance to fall down. That is very impactful. It actually has quite a unique impact on playable experience. There needs to be a little bit more of that, especially because we'll kind of address this now because I know this is going to be a question later. People always go, oh, are you going to look into explosives and the fragmentation and like, oh, RPGs feel underpowered, yada, yada, yada. The reason why these things feel underpowered is because of the way that we do the damage with the fragmentation and the explosives, right? They work like they do in the real world in where they explode, they shoot out fragmentation, and the fragmentation, like, unless it hits you somewhere critical, of course, it's just pinprick, and it's causing bleeding, and depending on what it hits, right, it's going to kind of create a whole bunch of tiny holes. The problem is in real life, like if you take a piece of shrapnel, and it's even if it's super small, if it hits your bone or something, like your capability is dramatically reduced. That's just not a thing here. So right now we have the effect where you get hit by a ton of the frag, but we don't really have the fake quote unquote gamified effects of like getting hit by a bunch of frag, right? Because it's not just like, oh, I'm just bleeding, put a band-aid on it. Like it is kind of RNG, right? It could be a flesh wound, very much so, where, you know, the piece of frag goes straight through, doesn't hit anything, or the single piece of frag could hit you in a bone, right? And it could be like super debilitating. We're not going so far as to add in like bone damage or anything like that. It's just going to be a extrapolation of where, you know, depending on how bad the body part is, it will affect, you know, if my left arm has a ton of wounds, maybe there's a lot more sway to the left, to the right, yada, 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 movement speed, stuff on the legs, stuff like that. And so the problem right now is when you hit someone with a grenade or when you hit someone with a RPG, they're catching all the frag, but they can still run around, move, shoot as though they took nothing, right? Of course, they get concussed, and that has also, once again, that very small change, that concussive change. We've seen that impact player behavior substantially, right? You get your world rocked if you get an RPG landing near you. You can't see much further than 25 meters, and that simple blur concussive effect, right? It's believable, right? It makes sense, and it decreases your capabilities as a shooter. Even like looking at your watch or your map, like you could be like, holy, I can barely make sense of this. And so grenades have a very big stun effect right now, which is very cool to see. And you can kind of see a lot more of that nuance in these munitions and in these explosives and equipment continually be added over time. So yeah, if you get shredded by fragmentation and all that frag went to your legs, guess what? You're very slow now, or you can't stand up, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of unique things we can do, but basically there needs to be punishment for certain damage on certain limbs that actually affects the playable experience. Otherwise it just feels like there's a disconnect, like there currently is now. So that's going to tackle the RPG question and the wound system. Drugs right now are going to get a total overhaul. I'm not really happy where the drug system is right now. So that's going to get a redesign. More on that when it happens. Armor needs to get reworked. Currently the armor doesn't really degrade as it should. I know that isn't exactly medical, but it is kind of attached to it. But the base medical actions, they're going to remain the same. We're not like increasing complexity in that regard, at least not at this point in time or in the short term. We're kind of just changing how certain things affect the player in a medical sense, if that makes sense. Modding support after we're completely done developing major systems for the game, so very long from now. I've been on the side of like modding a game when it's in active development, having mods break every major update, having to support an SDK while actively modding and developing a major game as well is a waste of time, or not a waste of time, is a massive headache for every single person involved, is a better way to probably say that. So once the game is stable and we aren't making massive overhauls and changes every single patch or update, that's when you can expect modding support. But fair warning, that is very far from now. How will we destroy the caches in Exploitation? You will have to plan to charge. It will be charge specific. Only certain classes will get charges, and it will require more than one charge. Yeah. Are there limits on where they can be placed? The caches have to be placed in the AO. They will not be able to be picked up, at least at this point. Maybe they will be. At this point in time, you cannot move them once they're placed in the AO. Those are the only real conditions. Of course, this is the first iteration. As testing will show, there will be additional changes and balances made, but that is the current iteration as it stands. Okay. But yeah, in the AO is very important. Lastly, how will server priority look later down the road for supporters and founders? So there is only one. That's not true. There's a couple priority queues. There's a priority queue for admins, right? Because whenever we want an admin, anyone playing a game, we want the admin in right away. So admins always jump queue, whether that's an official Astartes admin or if that's a community admin. Then you have community whitelists, right? So community servers, you guys will be able to have your whitelist of players and you'll be able to manage that however you want. That's the next line up. Then after that, it's supporters, right? So supporters is anyone with a supporter plus, so supporters and founders. You guys are in one queue. And then after that, it's deluxe and everyone else scrambled in, first come, first serve. That's the current queue list. I don't think that's going to change in any meaningful way, but that's the priority of the queue. And you can note that we do put community whitelist players above supporters, right? That is important to us. Community is important to us. We want to reward people from connecting with others, connecting with communities. That's a very big part of the game. But supporters still have a higher queue level than the general public or deluxe players as well. Okay. Night coming eventually. That's once I'm satisfied with the daytime combat, we'll introduce night, excuse me. The main reason is because the NVG versus non-NVG, conventional, unconventional balance is a very interesting one. It requires a lot of unique approaches that require extra time rather than just slapping night on the map and having insurgents walk around in the dark. So that just requires some work, more work than just making it night. Any plans for an in-game survey system? Not quite sure what you mean by that, Tucker. Ghost asks, drones, will there be an actual way to identify friendlies versus off for like blinking IR? You should be able to tell because once again, the Rangers are getting a very small Black Hornet, very identifiable. The Russians are getting like a forward moving FPV, right? So it's going to be zipping around. It's never really going to be hovering. And then the quadcopter for the insurgents is going to be able to hover, right? And it's much larger. So it should be very clearly visually and even audibly identifiable. But yeah, otherwise skill issue. You're just gonna have to learn it in IFF, just like with infantry. Marksman, recon, snipers, spotters, all that cool stuff that is planned. It is coming. So it is confirmed coming. It is just a matter of time. But all that stuff, marksman, spotters, recon, some other cool things we haven't talked about as well, all planned and coming. Progression system will entail the unlocks of cosmetics. This is one that we're handling like later, right? Because we want the foundation set, and it just simply requires a lot of time with the asset creation and just straight up art production. And we are a very small team. This is a very ambitious addition. But that is basically based off of how you performed in a round, just like every other shooter, except with the caveat that living and surviving is the utmost important thing. It's based off of winning and losing, and if you survived or not. Like, as you can tell in Bellum, one of the major themes with the limited life system is that, you don't want to die. That is a very core part of Bellum, is just the idea that, like, it's not just how many bodies you dropped or how many tickets you drained from the enemy. It is, how did you survive? Did you survive with lives? Did you survive the experience, the 2-hour experience? That is a very core mechanic within Bellum, and so a big part of progression will rely along how many lives you spent throughout the course of the match as well. But that will be cosmetics, and that will also be like a couple capabilities. One example of capabilities would be, let me think here, even optics, right? So some optics might be locked behind progression. Certain equipment might be locked behind progression. Certain capabilities locked behind progression. That's kind of the idea there. So it's not just cosmetic. There will be certain things that you will earn that will improve your role, or the role that you're playing, or at least let you kind of specialize to a certain task at hand, depending on what your squad or platoon wants to do. Will there be indirect fire? Mortars are planned. Mortars are planned. They will be in the form of 60 mil ish mortars. So small mortars. Yes, nothing larger than, we're not seeing like creeping 155 barrages or anything like that. Once again, remember the scale of Bellum. The scale is unconventional warfare, right? Counterinsurgency style operations and infantry skirmishes. So yeah, you're not going to see like carpet bombing or anything crazy. How do you play the tech test tonight? You have to be a supporter and just download the main branch. Recommendations for finding a unit, free cast. Just ask around, get to know people, honestly. Sniper teams, Cactus. You'll hear more about that as it comes along, but it is confirmed. It will be coming. It just requires some time. King says community pricing. Barton will have to answer that question. I do believe the last that we talked to him, it's gonna be, don't quote me on this, I think it's gonna be like $40-ish for a full server ish. Once again, we're cutting out the middleman, right? So there's not gonna be like this weird upcharge where like you have a third-party service that is charging more because they have to make money. Because we have the whole stack, infrastructure, hardware, and distribution, we can provide it for a very, very low price, or a lower price than other games, I should say, because you don't have to go through a third party. There's a lot of reasons why we're doing a lot of what we're doing, and a lot of it is community focused to make sure that things are the best way they can be for you guys, whether it's the management of them, whether it's the purchasing of it, whether it's the user experience and the and the configuration of it. How to disable mines. You won't, the best way to disable them is probably going to be some kind of standoff detonation. There's no mine defusal or anything like that really planned at this current point in time. The best thing would probably be some kind of standoff detonation or avoidance in general. That's going to be kind of the counterplay. So identification and spotting of it, or identification of likely known or suspected positions of them. So what I can say about this, it's so interesting because there's so much counterplay that can occur, and we've tested some of this already. So what I mean by that is, with the addition of the drones and the IEDs, if the drone spots where the enemy team is placing an IED or a mine, then the jig is up, right? And because those things are limited, it's not like these guys have to keep track of like 15 different mines going down on the map. Having some kind of understanding of how to counter drone observation and surveillance is going to be a very important part of Bellum, because if you get spotted when doing certain things like planting your IED, then it is, effectively useless because the enemy knows or has spotted where the IED is. Now, of course, that drone operator has to spot you, but there's a lot of really interesting counterplays and nuance to the gameplay that is going to change substantially, right? Like a lot of the maneuvers in general as well are going to have to consider drones. Like you don't want to really necessarily march the platoon in the open if you can avoid it, or you're going to want to minimize how many guys are in the open so that the enemy can't get a proper strength count on how many guys are where, right? So while you might get spotted, you might get compromised to some degree via the drone in the air. Seeing the whole platoon, 40 guys in the open, is a very different picture than seeing like 6 guys in the tree line and you can't spot anyone else, right? So there is still going to be a substantial amount of skill expression at the individual level and leadership level when coming to deploying their platoon in the AO. There's so much depth that really goes into how we counter some of these features, rather than a straight up like, oh yeah, this we have a role called EOD and they bring out a device that just disables all mines within 75 meters, right? Like the nuance in the game is much more, or the design in the game is much more nuanced than something as brutish or simple as that solution. And it's going to come down to, well, think about where they're going to place the ID. Can we spot where their IED dude is? Look with your eyes. Do we see the IED as we're moving into this area? Do we think the enemy is feinting a retreat to lure us into, an area where they put the IED? Like you have to use your brain. That is pretty much the crux of the answer I can give you. And there's many different ways you can use your brain. But yeah, that's kind of how you should approach the countering or dealing with of many systems within the game, not just IEDs. So super cool stuff, but good question. It is a good question because I know like a lot of people are used to like, yeah, you hit 5 as the EOD class and you have this device and you left click and it just stops everything. No, you have to. It's going to be a lot more nuanced than that. Will drones have a battery? Yes, they will have a battery. That will require some balancing as well. Will they be switchable? I believe they will be. Yes, they will be switchable. And even if your drone, so here's another cool thing, right? If your drone's running low on batteries, once again, you have a limited amount of drones. This means that like recovery of your drone and proper landing of your drone in friendly lines or close to an area where it is retrievable so you can swap the battery is going to be important, because nothing is really true. I mean, like, yes, you can quote unquote expend it, but like, you can never expend things haplessly in Bellum, and that is something that's very important. A lot of you guys have already kind of experienced it with the ammunition system. Like a lot of people ask, oh, when are we getting this system where we can have unlimited ammo? The answer, honestly, on the dev side, on the design side, is that we never really want you to have unlimited ammo. Not in the sense that it's like really easy to replenish, right? We want you to think about how you're expending your ammunition in every engagement, or how you're expending all your equipment in every engagement. And there will be systems to kind of like give you tools as well to think about, okay, well, how can we sustain this further than the first engagement? But we never want there to be this sense of, oh yes, there's an unlimited supply of something. That's just not the experience that we're aiming to kind of create, and that kind of lends itself, or that our design decisions kind of create this space where you're thinking about every decision you're making, because everything is limited down to your life, down to the drones, down to the bullets. Of course, there are some systems right now that are not finished that make some of this stuff a little wonky currently. We're in alpha, but that overall is the design intent moving forward, and just overall as a studio for a lot of the systems, is that things should be limited. Things will be limited, and in them being limited, it reinforces that your decisions matter in how you handle or address certain problems. Talked about night already. Speedy says, any plans for destruction? Not any time in the short or medium term. Yeah, we can handle a lot of the destruction, quote unquote, problems already via how we do some of the damage. Like we talk about how our explosive penetrate buildings, right? So if someone's a problem in a building, you can slam RPGs into it. RPGs will go through the wall and detonate on the other side. There's some new munitions, anti-structural munitions, that we will be adding that even do this even better. Of course, the thermobaric RPG does this quite well. But yeah, there's no real. It would take too much time that we could accomplish more impactful things than handle destruction. That's the plan. Well, we'd like to. It's a nice to have, but there's other cooler things we want to do. Vehicle air assets plan to be added. Yeah, so we're gonna have light infantry transport. We're gonna have helicopters and rotary support and transport. I should say transport more heavily than support. And then on the ground vehicle side, nothing heavier than an APC. Yeah, we are very light infantry focused over here. Excuse me. Will there ever be any collectible items on sale? Ask Waze. That's like a smaller thing. I don't know. Maybe. I love collecting. I'm a big collector. I play a lot of TCGs. I'm a big nerd like that. If we can make it make sense, and we're at a time and space where it makes sense for us to do it, and we can make some cool stuff, like, yeah, I'd enjoy that. Just from my personal side, I have a big interest in collection stuff. And I think that'd be cool. But of course, the game comes first, and so once again, it has to make sense for us to do something like that from a time perspective. What's the method? Pyro asks, what's the method of flight control for the drones? Will it be arcade and boring, or will it reward skill and practice? It will be difficult. The drone stuff is not easy. It is very much so not easy. From the simple act of, once again, not just the controls of flying the drone, but the thought process behind how you utilize the drone. Because it is not unlimited, right? Because the drones are limited, it means you can't just like fly them willy-nilly. Oh, I accidentally crashed my drone into the tree. Oh, I accidentally flew it too close and got shot down. Oh, I ran out of battery. Like, all that stuff is punishing. So the skill comes down not just to mechanical skill of how you can actually fly the drone, but also to a deployment or kind of usage skill, right? How well are you utilizing this drone? How well are you maintaining your battery life? Are you at the proper distance? Are you monitoring the right area? Are you communicating the information that you are witnessing effectively, right? Like, it is hard. Like you can say, oh, drones are easy, right? I'm just gonna hop in and click buttons and fly it. And yes, that is part of it. But once again, the thing that's gonna make a really good drone pilot is the person who knows how to maintain the drone and keep it in the fight. Who's going to know how to exactly when to use that payload at the proper time if their drone is offensive, as well as the communication and coordination aspect of it, right? I think one of the most effective usages of the drones is going to be the drone operator just being able to observe the correct thing and communicate what they are seeing properly to the platoon so that they can act on that information lethally, right? That is going to be, I think, more important than, oh yeah, I can fly the drone into an enemy. I think that is going to be what you'll see good drone pilots do is proper actual surveillance and target acquisition for the platoon, in addition to dropping payloads when payloads need to get dropped. But yeah, it is also just going to be mechanically harder, right? No visual interference and no audio. There's wind in the game. Yeah, there's drift, all that stuff. Okay. Thank you for the question, Pyro. Is there a straightforward way to buy a copy for another player? Ask Platypus. Yeah, just go on the website, buy a copy, and then send the guy the key. That's it. Brody asks, custom player patches for individual quality of life. That's a maybe. As you can see, like, we're very big on making sure that everyone's kind of standardized. Very big on like standardization first and foremost, and customization where it's appropriate. That is very important to us, right? Even down to like the team and unit structures, like we've preset that for you, how you do fire teams, how you do squads, and that's for a reason. There will be some ways that you can individualize and customize your player, but it's not going to be like tactical Barbie 100%. This guy's got a Hawaiian shirt on. This guy's rocking multicam black. This guy's walking multicam tropic. It's not going to be like that. The patches I can also, kind of end up like that because of how colorful some patches could get. There might be a tasteful way to do this, but at this point in time, not really in the scope. Salvador already answered that question. Jedi asks, any significant feature additions for the current tech test version or just bug fixes? We'll talk about that later as we close this out. Foro asks, is there a destruction of a feature? Already handled that. How many maps will there be total? The current plan is we'll have 2 maps come the 10th, technically, right? The idea is by 1.0 to have 3 or 4, ideally. 3 at the very least. If we can stretch to 4, that'd be great, but that's by 1.0, once again, later in the year. Customization of the gun will be possible, be on the levels kind of like Ready or Not and not like Escape from Tarkov, just to give you the scope. Vehicles, we already handled that question. Thank you for the questions. Spears, any plans on diversifying guns within Al Zalam and Seder as long as they're non-conventional units? Can we expect different firearms? So firearm additions, right? It is important to us. Like we are of the mindset that anything that gets added to the game must add new capabilities. We are not really of the mindset of just adding in new cool art for the sake of adding in new art. Any new art that gets added must kind of also add a new capability. So what I mean by that is before you see another AK that does exactly the same thing as another AK, you would probably see something like, I'm not saying this is next, but you'd probably see something like shotguns added in next, something that actually adds in a new or unique capability. Or you'd see like, we would go a little bit wider than we go copying the same thing, the same weapon archetype first. And that's a longer process, or like there's more higher impact things that we're working on is what I'll say. Already gave you guys a kind of a short rundown on customization, but aesthetics and some capability choices. Edubs asks, any plans on counter UAS systems, as well as bunkers and trenches? Once again, we are a counterinsurgency scope game. We are focused on, we're not like throwing 50 drones at each other. We're also not digging in and building massive trench systems and stuff like that. This is very much a quote unquote raid style light infantry platoon skirmishing game. So if that helps paint a better picture for you, UAS systems, like, don't get spotted by it, number 1, and number 2, shoot it down if you can. That's the current kind of mindset at this stage in development, in terms of countering the drones, as well as just general platoon tactics, right? If you stack the whole platoon in one area, guess what? It's much easier for that drone operator to maintain a scope on that one area, right? So you're going to have to think of like, okay, if we're Al Zalam, maybe we really now want to spread out more so that we can tax and oversaturate the tasking of the drone operator, right? And this is stuff that we've experienced in testing. We're like, despite how powerful the drone is in the sky, being able to see everything, it is very easy to be overwhelmed, right? Keeping track of how many guys moving, how many places where, marking it on the map, communicating it with the team. It is a full-time job. And so the more you can kind of mess with that player on an execution level or a tactical level, those are some things that you can do. Once again, we talked about this with IEDs as well, that can outplay the drone operator. Is instead of just, hey, here's this drone gun that you pointed up in the sky and it shoots down the drone, it's like, no, what terrain are you going to utilize? How are you going to move throughout the terrain? How are you going to disperse your element in order to counteract the capabilities of your opponent? So once again, all that gameplay and counter stuff is more cerebral than it is one-click solution counter. Okay. Talked about night ops array, Chief. But yeah, we'll talk about night when we get closer to night. Skinwalkers is fragmentation rework plan. It seems a little underpowered. Talked about that already. Reno 1 will be an option to select loadouts. Some customization. Talked about that already. Customize all key controls be available. The customization of the keybinds is planned. It has just been a bear for us to handle because of how many custom keybinds we have. And it's a very slow process because we're working on other things as well. So yes, just taking time. War Daddy 11X asks, hey man, just wondering if things like building like in squad sandbags, foxholes, towers. So once again, very light infantry, skirmish, raid type gameplay. We're not building massive bases and throwing creeping barrages at each other. This is not the scope of this experience. Clay asks, popping flares. Oh no, that's a question. Freeman asks, Alzalon platoon leader being able to use trophy weapons for his role exclusively, as seen in other real world groups. Nothing like that plan currently. I do like where your head's at, but yeah, nothing like that plan currently. Invictus asks, what's the required player count interest for region to attain official servers? What's the required once again, initially it's going to be case by case as we beta test features and access, but eventually it'll be kind of open to whoever can host. I gotta talk to Barton and see if we're doing whoever wants to host, I should say. But I have to talk to Barton if there's going to be any more additional requirements. I don't have the specifics on that for you. I'd have to ask Barton. And he talked about having helicopter transport. Yes. CAS, very light, very, very, very light CAS. For possible vehicles, what do you imagine? Asked Ratman, what do you imagine their offensive and defensive capabilities? It's a lot of our stuff is based off of real world. So yeah, it's going to be real world based, and we'll pick what makes sense from that kind of pool of vehicles and put what makes sense from that pool of vehicles into the game. But yeah, it's going to make sense. If in the real world a 50 cal penetrates this, then yes, it will penetrate. Or if in the real world, the rocket from a Gustav, penetrates this millimeter thickness of armor, then it will. That's kind of how our stuff does. Okay. Titanish asks, what can we expect from Bellum in regards to the soundtrack or score of the game, atmosphere and vibe, or everything? So the game is very much not music focused. Like when you're playing the experience, it's not really a thing. It is important for our players to listen to the sounds in the environment, to the sounds across the map, right? Our gun sounds in Bellum are authentic in that you can hear them out to like 1,000+ meters. Which is super cool. Like you can hear distant gunfights. You can hear the different sounds that different calibers make. There's different levels of air absorption with the explosions and at range with the different calibers. And we're even working on a system that changes the sound based off of the direction of the barrel. So you'll be able to tell, okay, kind of like to the really trained ear in certain situations, you'll be able to tell, okay, that gun is shooting and it's shooting towards us or away from us. Yeah, we're very much like the music is only really there for the main menu and for like videos, dev videos. Yeah, we're not really a narrative cinematic story game in that sense. We very much want players to live and breathe in the exact experience they're playing. Ghost asked, not sure if it's been brought up. Any comment on any more crew serve weapons, as in the Mark 19, AGS 30, SPG? There's been thoughts, nothing confirmed at this point in time. We are happy with the current arrangement of crew serve weapons. Anything heavier gets pretty lethal pretty fast. Yeah, we haven't thought of any additional crew serve weapons past what we have now. Black Ops Elf, RPG to face glitch / achievement. It'd be cool to have achievements. It would be. The only thing from an execution standpoint on our end is like, we don't want people achievement hunting. Like, once again, as I mentioned before, we want players to live and breathe the experience that they're in currently and like play the game the way it's meant to be played, instead of like, run around and stab 3 people without dying and now you have a whole bunch of people chasing really weird goals. We want, if we do have achievements, they'll be aligned with the experience itself. Yeah, and catching an RPG to the face, I guess that makes sense. Okay. Continuing on here, Iceman asks, so with drones being added, especially lethal drones, PID is super important. While using these, will damage be dealt to friendlies from the drones being mirrored? Yes, it would. So it's just like the currently friendly fire protection stuff. It'll make sense currently and get in the game as well. Where yeah, the drone operator misses PID, then yes, it's going to get reflected, right? Because we want that thought process of like, when I'm using this thing, when I'm conducting some kind of lethal engagement, I am considering all the real world things that should be considered in order for this to happen properly. You're getting grid squares and contours next with the UI getting this refresh, right? The UI rework was primarily War Daddy focused on like the necessary UIs, like the server browser settings, screens, etc. Once we get a lot of that stuff out of the way, which with this next kind of push we should be, the next focus is a pretty much near entire ATAC, BTAC phone UI and look overhaul and capability overhaul. Okay. Buckeye asks, will you consider adding controller support? There's already some native controller support because we're following some UE guidelines. Jack has more information on that if you want to talk to him about that. But yeah, there's some controller support already just because we follow a lot of standards, which is cool. But yeah, I don't know how, it's not like completely, Steam Deck approved or anything like that. But I think some people have tried hooking up gamepads or controllers to it already. Oreo, not sure if you mentioned this already, how many limit on drones? Once again, like probably 3 drones per team per entire match. Once again, asterisk pending balancing. Okay. Tactical Chef, what about weather effects? Question mark. You hear more of that. You hear more on that. Okay. Let's see what else. Bober asks, for the FOV currently holding shift reduces the current FOV percentage, leading to everyone on the map rowing the lowest FOV possible. Is there plans to adjust this? Yeah, we can look at that. That's a small improvement we can make in the future, but yeah, we'll look at that in the future. Mirko, any maps loosely based on real world events planned? We draw a lot of inspiration from, whether it's even movies or it's real world events. We do draw a lot of inspiration from things, but we want to remain as respectful as possible when creating things for the project. Kaj, do you see the live game? How do you see the live gameplay of the game in the sense of having a general public instead of a selected group of creators and etc. are milsim oriented? I'm not really sure what you mean by this question. To some degree, the fact that we are off of Steam helps immensely with this, where we don't really pull a lot of random, quote unquote, random players to the game that just like, oh, what is this? Hop in and play and are misaligned with the game's goals or intent. The fact that we have to kind of be discovered and played off of Steam means that everyone to a degree opts into this experience very deliberately. And that's kind of how we've been able to maintain. Once again, we talk a lot about maintaining match quality, community alignment, and general experience across the quality of the game. Like being off of Steam was a very deliberate decision to help with that, because it means that everyone here was looking out for this specific experience and is willing to opt into the game not being on Steam, which once again, as you mentioned, is like a higher bar of player. So I don't really see the general public. This is the general public. It's just the general public that really wants to play this game, and that's kind of what we're going for and who we're catering to and who we want to play the game. I don't want necessarily anyone to just drop in haplessly, check out the project and like, whatever, Steam refund, right? Like we want to make sure that the player base is very aligned with our goals because the community plays such a massive part in the experience. So yeah, we're kind of happy of where it sits. It's a kind of a problem that solved itself. But we'll keep monitoring it, and we understand that we want to get new players into the game. But we think that, we have our own ways of being able to do that don't rely on just casting a mega wide net for it, because that is detrimental. Okay. Step Ghost asks, will the scouts be FOs or will that not be a different role? So like, once again, counterinsurgency, smaller raid style skirmish infantry centric experience. You're not going to be calling in like 155 creeping barrages. So like forward observers in that sense, calling in big stuff like that. Kind of different than like someone calling out a fire mission for the 60 mil mortar, and that can be anyone, right? I think that's like a lower level skill that even a squad leader can do. You don't need a designated FO for a 60 mil mortar fire mission. Flight time limits on drone as fractured, yeah, will be handled in some way, shape, or form, most likely batteries. Will PvE ever be an option? We are focused entirely on PvP right now. Maybe someday hypothetically fairy dust in the future, we are completely happy and satisfied with PvP, and we have the means and capabilities to do PvE, I would like to do that, but PvP is our first and foremost priority. What is the upper end of server sizes you guys are looking at? Asked Preston. We're happy with 80 until we add in new slots. Once we add in vehicles, I would probably expect the player count to go up to 100. That's kind of where we'll sit. But there's cool things we could do, but that's kind of where we sit. 80 until vehicles, then vehicles 100, and then we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. Okay, Edub says rough timeline for the map markers rework is going to be in. Once again, the new UI stuff is going in probably next week. So that's probably the weekend of the 28th. And then after that, we bang out those bugs and UI is straight on in on the BTAC. Blaze asks, with mention of placing markers on the map for mines, will the markers last deleted? Yeah, that whole system needs to get reworked. Melon Keller, not a question. Okay. Vector asks, will IDs and others be command detonated? They're going to be command detonated. There is going to be options for additional detonation styles in the future, but all of these currently are command detonated. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. That's a whole rabbit hole that would be cool, that we'll get to in the future. But yeah, we want there to be nuance, right? We always talk about nuance in decisions of what you are doing. So there will be certain reasons to do. I would like there to be certain reasons to pick different command detonation types, and certain cool things to do with that. Okay. Boba asks, will there be a way to combine half mags into one? Probably not. Not really something you do in the heat of a firefight, realistically. Maybe if we do ever add it, it'd take a long time. It would take a realistic amount of time to do, so you do it when you're, pulled back a little bit more. Okay. Over asks, when may people who bought Foundry Supporter or Deluxe receive their weapon skins and watch skins? All that stuff should be delivered roughly around 1.0. All the special stuff should, or not 1.0, excuse me, early access. By early access, all the Founder Supporter, all the cool additional stuff, that stuff will go out probably around that time. Okay. Will there be commander call-ins for commanders? In some way, shape, or form, yes. The limit will be, the limit of the scale will be a thing. Once again, going back to how the game plays, but yes, there will be. All right, scrolling through here. All right, Bobert asks for the FOV. Oh, did you? No, it's a re-ask. In the near future, asks Over, will there be a plan to add game modes like RAS or Invasion like in Squad where we use the whole map instead of a set AO? Not in the way that you're used to it. I think I have very strong opinions on that. Yeah. We don't plan to ever create anything that's like RAS or Invasion. Not really a big fan. I think we could do better. Or I think there are ways that could be done better, that is more engaging. Yeah, and the usage of the whole map all at one point in time. Yeah, I don't necessarily like that for the scale that we're going for. So maybe something will change in the future, but not really planned. Boots asks, will you be able to take mags off the dead? Kind of a system like that coming soon ish, but not exactly the way you're thinking, unfortunately. Sorry about being cryptic about that one too. Vector asks, are IDs others commanded? So am I looping right now? What's happening? Or are these just getting re-asked? Fuck asks, will the damage system from when it comes to the RPGs or FPVs hitting a vehicle be like Armor Reforger, where it only pins surrounding people's or kills where it directly hits? Kind of, yeah. Like that's kind of how our RPGs currently work right now. Like if the RPG 7 or the PG 7 hits a wall, like we do the whole shape charge spear through the wall damage. It doesn't just pass like a bubble through the wall. That damage cone and fragmentation spalling is simulated right now, so it'd be the same for vehicles. Where yeah, that spear of copper plasma jet will go where it goes. Okay. Thoughts on a reputation system? Asked Kat. Yeah, there's a lot. Once we talked about guardrails early on. There's a lot we have to do there. Pistol update when? Eventually. Low priority trim. Muttfish asks, what does this game offer? A plan to offer that sets it apart from other milsim games? If I were to try and get a friend that plays Arma to play this, what would you say makes a convincing argument to make the switch? I think our biggest selling point, the thing that we pride ourselves very heavily on, is how much we have designed the experience from top to bottom to straight up encourage a level of teamwork and coordination that is straight up unmatched unless you play in very curated specific experiences with a set group of people on, Zeus operations. The amount of coordination you're able to get in a game of Bellum out of the box is, I would say, completely unrivaled for the simple fact of how everything's been designed. Yeah, that's how I would argue it. In a PvP sense as well, right? Because once again, we go a lot of these armor groups that are super coordinated, super milsim-y. It's PvE stuff. So that's what sets us apart. Soul Wipes. Any details on spectator cameras having the ability to tweak settings in training server? Should come earliest in May. So we had to move some things around. But May will be when training server stuff should be really polished. And you guys should have a decent amount of control over training servers. Any way to get groups in together as a squad? Asked Jazzy. There is a system planned for it with time. But currently no. Platypus asks, are the training servers going to be multiplayer instances or purely single player? Multiplayer for sure, 100%, because we do believe in like people teaching other people. We want to encourage that and support that as much as we can as a studio. So there's already a big overhaul planned for that next, once again, coming in May. But yeah. Tonka asks, any plans to have an onboarding training system? Yeah, just going to come with time. Pest asks, will we get more options to interact with foliage and vegetation? Kind of. Foliage and vegetation doesn't affect player movement or decision making as much as we'd like. So that's probably going to get increased. So like what I mean by is like very simple stuff where you can't be in the center of a bush. It's slower when you walk around a bush. You make more noise, all that kind of stuff. There's some other cooler stuff too that I'd like to do, but I have to see if it's technically possible with our resources. Jar asks why we would be able to hit crazy emotes on my dropped enemy squads. Nothing arcadey. We have some cool thematic and actual believable emotes that we'd like to do, but yeah, lower prio. Dilly asks, will command eventually get the old mag count back and said they get 6 mags now? That whole like mag capability system is going to get reworked, and how many mags everyone's getting will be reworked when cross-loading is getting that rework as well. So kind of is the answer, but yeah, you'll hear more about that when it's finished. Tillerson asks or says for Karma, I'll say I actually really like the engagements and tactics the lack of magnified optics force you into. Yeah, it's a very big thing. The second you give everyone optics, the game gets really wonky. That's why we're also super careful with like the binoculars and why we were super hesitant rolling it out. And they are probably, once again, big disclaimer here. I would say prepare yourselves for optics or binoculars to get nerfed in some way, shape, or form as well. Whether it's in the capabilities, the usage, the negative effects of using one, or the straight up accessibility of them, of who has them. I would just prepare yourselves mentally for that, because yeah. I know gamers love seeing things, but you guys also have to realize that half of why this game is, or half of why the game plays the way it does, is because of the restriction of certain things that of things that you think you would like to have, but would actually negatively affect the gameplay you'd play. Yeah. Will there be a way to have a lock squad or for friends to join each other? Ask Guinness. Yes, kind of. To get more specific on this, there will be a way you can get friends into your squad, but there will not be private lock squads. It is just very important for me, for the experience, once again, that we don't have like 8 locked 3-man squads or some weird stuff like that. Once again, the Bellum's point is to jam 40, 50 of you guys together in one match on one team and have you figure it out together as a group, talking, working, and operating as one. That is the goal. We also want you to be able to play with your friends. So there's some cool things we can do to still maintain that while letting you play with your friends. But one of those things is most definitely not lock squads. Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's just one of the things. It's just not Bellum, right? It's just not the behavior we want to encourage. It's just not the style of players we really want. And what I would say to that is the way that you would go about doing that, which we do want to support in the future. Once again, just join a community. And then I would love to see organized play in some way, shape, or form. I think organized play, I think games like these really lend themselves. I mean, it's obvious, right? Milsim units are a massive thing. Organized play amongst each other is a cornerstone of the genre. I would love to see clans going up against clans, groups going up against groups. With the conditions that are set in Bellum, because I think that stuff is really, really cool. It's really entertaining. You guys love it, watching yourselves in the cam already, and it's just like random players together. Lightning comment question. There will be artillery? No, only 60 mil mortars, probably the heaviest thing that we have in indirect fire capabilities. Is there any, Hotel Delta asks, is there any long view for if you guys knock it out of the park? Will the game servers last 10 plus years? Would multiplayer eventually close out? I don't know. What I can say or will say is that we know how long these games last. Like, Arma's been around 10 years, Squad's been around 10 years, Tarkov's been around 10 years, hell, at least like 10 years-ish, right? Milsim games we know stick if we can just get stable and just, have a player base and have stable ground. We are thinking, what I mean by answering this question is we are thinking and cognizant and knowledgeable that this is a long-term thing. What we do with that long-term stuff will remain to be seen, but we are prepared to some degree for it. Oh my God, my chat just jumped. Did I go back or forward? I went back. Okay, hang on. Spears asks, picking different elements instead of an MG team or a recon team depending on mission scope. You'll hear about that later. Thank you, Spears. Failseed asks, will the flight model be leaning more towards Arma 3 or 4? It's going to be more on the realistic side. I don't want it to be like DCS level where you got to read a manual to fly or whatnot, but we do want it to be difficult. We do want it to be challenging and a skill. When are Claymores coming? You should see Claymores, hopefully. They're definitely going to be on the 10th. Whether or not they get in on some of these alpha tests will remain to be seen. Yes, scantily plaid, there will be an in-game social friends list system. Maple, I think you missed his question or wasn't paying attention. Which classes will have access to IEDs and Claymores? It'll be a dedicated role in the command element, most likely. More info on that as it comes. Or it will be... Yeah, I'll think about that. Honestly, we're not... For the Insurgents, it's going to be a dedicated role, for sure, in the command element. For the Rangers, it might just go on to, like, the PL or even the platoon sergeant or leadership role. Yeah. We'll test a couple things and see what feels best. But for the Insurgents, it's definitely going to be a set role. Narwhal's asked, will FTLs have C4 that is at the minute? Is that intentional for the class? Yeah, C4 is going to be the leadership only. It's how you're going to blow up the caches in Exploitation. Yeah. Skinwalker asks, is there a tournament / competitive scene plan? Not officially in any way, shape, or form in the short or medium term, but it is cool. Like, we love watching that stuff. But we also know how crazy that scene can get. So there's nothing officially planned for it. We'll do what we can, but it's not a focus for the short and medium term. But I'd love to see that stuff. Soul Wipes, what are the studio's expectations on graphical improvements and smoothness? There's a lot that we have to do for optimization. We're planning on another optimization pass come maybe April for May. So first see it in May. Small optimization pass. More streams coming. Yeah, we'll be streaming this weekend. Taco, yeah, is going to be gun customization. Tillerson question. Do you always picture the scale Bellum to be roughly the size of where it's at now? Yeah, right now, yeah. I don't see no 500s. Oh, I thought that was M for man. Or do you imagine super scaled maps with 500, 600 meter engagements? I think engagement size and scale, I think that stuff is cool. Having very far engagements and close engagements, I think that's important and cool. And we have the systems and design in place for that to be meaningful in Bellum. Yeah, we'll see different engagement ranges for sure. Jar asked, whoa. Jar asked, when Heli comes out, can we use HOTAS and track IR? Nice to have stretch stuff. We'll try. Taka asks, any plans for match replayability? We're working on a replay system. Just some initial R&D on that. Will the website be updating Reno? In what way do you mean? And I'm finally caught up. Okay. That being said, like 3 more questions, then we're gonna roll to the tech test. Clay asks, any plans later down the road for content creator partnerships? Like kinda ish. Yeah, sure. Very soft on that answer. We're focused on the game first. Content creator stuff, yeah, later soon. Or later eventually. Soul Wipes, have there been any conversations about special events? Let them be for anniversary, holidays, or seasons. We would love to do that. I would love to do that if I can remember. We take it day by day. Sometimes I forget what day it is. We're just doing things. So yeah, if we can plan better, I'd like to do some more event style stuff. But yeah, we're just taking one day at a time. Elf asks, will you be able to commit to a semi-regular game commentary such as what you've done in the past? Yeah, we would love to. I think it's super entertaining and engaging. We'll try to get something more consistent going. But yeah, it's just a small team. We're doing so much all at once. We gotta, it's the devs who are casting this stuff. Maybe if we can figure something else out. But yeah, it's literally just time and resources. Yeah, all right, that's gonna be it for the questions. We appreciate this. Thank you everyone for joining us.